Islam Moorish. I want to welcome everyone to our Monday night conference call. This one is always called the State of the Nation. I'll be your host instructor for the evening. And this is Dr. Elliot Pleasant Bay, Divine Minister and Grand National Chairman. I want to welcome everyone, and let us begin with prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. From the divine constitution of Moorish America, we read the Constitution itself. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of Moorish America are in power to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the grand body of Moorish America. To assist the Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The bylaws. Act 2. All meetings be open and closed properly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest, because on the Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on the Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended to his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is a holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced for all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse false his brother or sister on any occasion at all. They may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government. Because by being a Moorish American, you are a part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization in Moorish America to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know they are part and parcel of this said government, and know they are not Negroes, colored folk, black people, Ethiopians, because these names were given to slave or slaveholders in 1779 and lasted 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is new era time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble dwelling the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all the living acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America, then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother, be industrious, and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God, Allah. With the recitation of our national prayer, the Moorish American prayer, and reading of our divine constitution and its 6 bylaws of the Holy Covenant, we now declare, the divine covenant, we now declare our mission officially open according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Once we have a very exciting class tonight, we want you to please have your personal papers handy. Our subject matter is being featured, since this is the birthday celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. We will now go into the mountaintop that Martin Luther King Jr. Went to just prior to his departure. That would be our subject matter for tonight. It's been quite interesting. A lot of boys don't know this history about Martin Luther King Jr., Moorish science, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, but we will give it up tonight. Anyway, I want to call your attention to our chapter, our subject chapter, chapter 29. And this is magistrate and subject. And what I want to do, I want to ask the National Secretary, if she will, to read ayahs 14 through 18, actually through 19, with his commentaries from our add-up breakdown of chapter 29. Okay? As she come before you, please give the National Secretary your undivided attention as she reads the add-up version of chapter 29 with the eyes of full called Islam.
Gratitude, Brother Grand National Chairman Islam Moors. First of all, I want to rise giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving a most special honor to our Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our Moorish American government, all of our officials, staff, Swift angels, muftis, divine ministers, most especially our Moorish citizens, giving honor to our conference call this evening, State of the Nation, and giving honor to whom honor is due. Chapter 29, Magistrate and Subject, Ayah 14. His ears are open to the complaints of his subjects. He restraineth the hands of their oppressors, and he delivereth them from their tyranny. Commentary. His ears are open to the complaints of his subjects. The majority of complaints from Moorish who are fresh from slavery into freedom are connected to Western Freemasonry, miseducation, paganism, and post-traumatic slave syndrome. They complain to see there is no peace in their society from these shackles. He restraineth the hands of their oppressors. The protections held within the sovereignty of a free national constitution and its government are the only true restraints against the minds of an oppressive government. No one will ever find a government in the judicial courts of another government. Once true Moorish Americans come to this realization, the more they will formulate through self-determination into their own government. No one can free a Moorish national but Moorish nationals. This is the only way Moorish Americans can witness how they and he delivered them from their tyranny. Ayah 15. His people therefore look up to him as a father with reverence and love. They consider him as the guardian of all they enjoy. Commentary. His people therefore look up to him as a father. The nation will look upon their theocratic government as their salvation, redemption, and Father God of their nation, with reverence and love. They consider him, their magistrate and government, as the guardian of all they enjoy. Ayah 16, their affection unto him begetteth in his breast a love of the public. The security of their happiness is the object of his care. Commentary, their affection unto him, their love for themselves and their government will be seen in their love to each other, being a part and parcel of their government and living the life accordingly. Begetteth in his breast a love of the public. The security of their happiness is the object of his care. Ayah 17, no murmurs against him arise in their hearts. The machinations of his enemies endanger not the state. Commentary, no murmurs against him. Hatred, slander, spiteful remarks, defamation of character, planting negative seeds in weak minds, creating doubtful thoughts, Satan going to and fro, arise in their hearts. The machinations, plans, set up, devising of secret, cunning of schemes to do harm, of his enemies endanger not the state, the Moorish American nation state. Ayah 18, his subjects are faithful and firm in his cause. They stand in his defense as a wall of brass. The army of a tyrant flieth before them as chaff before the wind. Commentary. His subjects are faithful. All Moorish Americans with their hearts and minds purified with love are Muslims, and therefore blessed with the name of faithful, and firm in his cause. The salvation of the Moorish Americans answer the prayers for peace from all nations of the earth. This is why all Moorish magistrates and subjects alike know they stand in his defense of their government as a wall of brass. The army of a tyrant flieth before them as chaff before the wind. Ayat 19. Security and peace bless the dwelling of his people, and glory and strength encircle his throne forever. Commentary. Security and peace bless the dwelling of his people, and glory and strength encircle his throne forever. Moorish America, the holy land of the gods, also known as Amexium, is the prophesied dwelling of the clean and pure nation. By praising the great God from the nearest place and honoring the last prophet and being our true selves, all nations will encircle our and their theocracy forever. Amen.
Thank you so much, Sister Secretary. And it's always a blessing to have you back at headquarters too. So thank you so much. Islam Moors, once again we rise, giving praise to Allah and honor to the Prophet Noble Ali. We extend much honor to the works of Noble Ali, and we shall venture even further into these great divine works as tonight's class unfolds. We want to feature, in addition to our chapter, Magistrate and Subject, some of the great works that were performed by the Prophet Noble Ali. One of the things that I want to point out more is that in honor of Brother Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday was January the 15th. He was born in 1929, which is the same year that Noble Ali left the body, 7 months later, okay? Another thing about 1929, the Empress of Washington, if you will, was 3 years old at this time, meaning that she was born herself in 1926. But the main feature here that I want to speak about is that these dates that I'm going to render out to you is of great significance. Okay, for example, Noble Ali, who was born January 8th, 1886, 16 years later, he found himself in the middle of the Arab capital of the world, which is Kemet, people modern name Egypt. And at this age, a 16 boy born 16 years of age, and born and treated as a Negro, is almost unprecedented. It has never happened before or since that they found themselves at the age of 16 in Egypt, unescorted by relatives, friends, whatever the case may be. Okay, that's because his birth had already been prophesied since ancient time, and the Arabs around the world knew that the very day that Noble Ali was born, they didn't know, and he was born in the West, they knew that too, but they didn't know him by name, by face, or personage, but they knew, just like they knew the coming of Yehoshua, the people today call Jesus. They knew he was coming. That's why the 3 wise men came from different countries at his birth. They call them Arabs, or sheiks, if you will. They all had the teachings of the ancient ones. And so I just wanted to point this out, that these 16 years, the first 16 years of his life, that he was born here in the state of North Carolina, here in the United States under the 14th Amendment, which was another version of institution of slavery. And he spent the next 10 years in Egypt learning everything necessary to carry out his appointment as a holy prophet. You must remember, Moors, although a lot of Moors, they do not check the records enough to realize that the divinity of Noble Drew Ali, he was not born accidental. Okay, his birth was by prophecy. He was born from amongst those, unlike Farad, unlike anybody else, okay, that came from other places or born from other nations, come to save the Moors. No. You must be born from amongst those that you are sent to redeem. This has been the covenant of the great God for every prophet that's every major and minor prophet that's ever been born, whether it be Confucius for the Chinese or whether it be Gautama Buddha for the people of India. It didn't matter. Wherever Abraham, check it all out. All of them, they're all there. Most of them is in the Bible. You got 25 of them that's in the Great Quran of Muhammad. And either way you go, they're all born from amongst the very people that they are to save. Noble Drew Ali was no exception to this holy covenant that was put out by the great God, stating, I shall always raise one from amongst you to bring you back toward the seat of judgment. Okay, and this is always held true because every nation, as is in our Quran, has suffered slavery. Anyway, at the age of 26, 27, you're allowed this year for travel. Noble Drew Ali ventured back from, after he left out of Kemet, he went to the holy city of Mecca, where he was honored as the prophet that he is. Okay, and this was also honored by, you must take into consideration, for anyone to go into Mecca, the holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia, and talk about being a prophet after the Arabs have put a claim out there that Muhammad was the seer of the prophet. This is certain death. You're not going to come up out of there with your head still attached to your body unless you're protected by divinity, as was Noble Drew Ali. But he did, this way he received the attribute, not only the pilgrimage that he made, but you mustn't take into account the entire divinity of his pilgrimage. The wholeness of his pilgrimage was not confined to Mecca. His pilgrimage began in a very circle of divinity here in the United States, and it was capitalized in the holy city of right there, well, you might as well say Alexandria, but in Kemet or Egypt, and he made his exit way through Mecca. He didn't receive any teachings in Mecca. He didn't go to Mecca to be taught. He was taking the teachings to Mecca himself. The same way that the angel Jibril, who was also an Egyptian adept master, for 23 years, he took the lessons out of Kemet to Muhammad. And it took him that long to teach Muhammad the holiness of the teaching that it was going to take to redeem the Arabs from their sinful ways. But they were still serving God and praying to gods that was outside of themselves. And for the lack of a thing, a lot of that hasn't changed. But anyway, in dealing with the history of Noble Drew Ali, after that year of travel, in 1913, he had established the first camp here in the United States. And he had also met with the head of the Illuminati, which was the governor and president-elect, governor of the state of New Jersey, president-elect Woodrow Wilson. And in so doing, Woodrow Wilson also acknowledged who Noble Dwali. Everywhere he went, people acknowledged him. The only people that placed any kind of opposition to Noble Dwali was his own kind, the people that he was sent to redeem. Okay? And for 16 years, here's the 16 again, for 16 years, from 1913 to 1929, this was the course of his ministry. And within the course of this 16 years, and you must remember that the solid number for 16 is still 7. 1 plus 6 is 7. And so with the course of this gave him to the ripe age of 43, which was the age when he decided to leave the body to go handle our affair. We in such wretchedness that he had to go to the soul plane in order to complete his mission and duty of a prophet. And the duty of a prophet is always, which is immutable, it's unchangeable, it's never changed. The duty of all prophets is to save the nation. More get caught up because Yehoshua took a few loaves of bread and some fish and fed the multitude. They get caught up on how Muhammad made a circle around to Medina and Jerusalem and other places before he came back to Mecca. Okay? This is not it. The duty of a prophet is to save the nation, first of all, from which he was born among. And then that message is to be delivered to the other nations of the earth. There is no nation that is exempt or is above the holy covenant and divine teachings of the God state that teaches them back to being gods again, and responsibility that assures that. And most of the time, in fact all of the time, it comes in the form of a government. More often than not, it's a theocratic government, meaning that a theocracy and not a republic. We would never ever be a republic. In fact, the more the suffered under being a democratic republic. If you don't know what that'll do to you by now, you ought to leave it alone. Okay? But a theocracy means that you got the great God at the top, the great books and prophets in the middle, and all the subjects, okay, and citizens, and God men, God people, God women, goddesses, etc., are there at the foundation, okay? And this is how this is the power of a theocratic government. This is how the pyramid is raised, okay? So when it comes down to in January the 15th, which also marks our Moorish New Year, this is also the date in which in 1865, which Congress of the United States signed into law 2 of the 20 articles of the 13th Amendment. The original 13th Amendment had 20 sections to it, but only 2 was ratified. One of them is all that was needed, and that was the one that abolished slavery, okay, except for those who were duly convicted by a crime. The other one was to give Congress the power to do anything else with that particular article, okay? That 13th Amendment was so profound, it came under the Lincoln administration, but it was so profound that even to this day, Moors still do not realize the power that the 13th Amendment gave them. What it did, it didn't free you, neither did the Emancipation Proclamation for that matter. But what it did, it abolished the system that held you down into slavery. This is all the power that the government of the corporate United States, or any other government for that matter, had in their power to do. After all, they were the one that enslaved you, so, but they did not have the power to free you. They don't have that, okay? The reason why they don't have, because the power, the principle of freedom is always buried within the heart, within the memory of every living thing. freedom is buried into the memory of every living thing. And man is no exception to that, okay? All the birds that fowl or fly, or the fish that swim, the beasts that roam the earth, they all have a memory, okay? All creatures think, and all creatures are possessed of a will. If you want to have some trouble out of any creature, then try to take away its divine right that it's born with to be free to be itself, okay? A turkey has the right to live the life of a turkey. It's right there in the turkey memory. And it's going to walk around being a turkey just as long as it can be a turkey. But if you want trouble out that turkey, you try catching it and restraining it to stop it from being a turkey, and he's going to fight to the last feather if it can, okay, in order to try to get back to being a turkey again. This holds true for every living thing, including man. Whenever that freedom has been jeopardized, like a prisoner, when you take a free man and you imprison him, you capture him and you restrain him, all right, he automatically going to try to fight against those restraints to exercise their right to be free to think and to do the things that free men do. Okay, so the United States does not have the right to, or the ability to free anybody. They don't have the right to even have its own citizens for that matter. But that's another subject matter. The thing about it is that when it comes down to abolishment of slavery, this is all that was in the power of the corporate enslaving powers of the United States. So that's all they could do, was remove the system of slavery that had enveloped the descendants of the ancient Moabites here in the Americas. And so with this in mind, that's what January 15, 1865 measured. Well, for instance, years later, Martin Luther King Jr. 1929 was born on January 15, 1929. Okay? The same year that Noble Drew Ali decided to leave. This is after Noble Drew Ali got back from Havana, Cuba, after he had established and got the charter and everything that was the mandate for letting us know that we actually own the Americas, the whole nine. Martin Luther King Jr. was born January 15, 1929. Okay, he lived to be 39. Okay, 4 years younger than Noble Drew Ali. You say Noble Drew Ali passed at an early age. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't even make it that far. Okay, Noble Drew Ali made it to 43. Martin Luther King Jr. made it to 39. Okay, he passed April 4th, 1968. Now, a lot of people are familiar with that, and they're also familiar with the speech that he made the night before he passed. Now, I'm not talking about the speech that he gave at the Washington Monument in honor of which is spoken about today during the inauguration, the second inauguration of President Obama. And we stand him honor also as the prophet's president. We wrote him a letter when he was 4 months in office and let him know that he was going to be there 2 terms. This comes from the Moorish American government. When we sent him his Divine Minister papers along with Michelle and national identification card for his daughters, Sasha and Malik, and also for himself and his wife. Obama himself was born a free man, so he didn't have to, but his wife and his 2 children were born under the 14th Amendment. But the Moorish American government took care of that, okay? And they also have a copy of the Noble Drew Ali, the Symbol of a Nation, as well as the Moorish flag, okay? So I want to speak about that because one of the speeches that we were speaking about is the speech that Martin Luther King made in Memphis And ironically as it may sound, I want to draw your attention to where he made the speech at. Because today when, well actually it started yesterday, when Obama took the oath of office, okay, for the second term, the Bible, one of the Bibles that he used for his oath of office was called the Bible of Martin Luther King, the Traveling Bible. Now, as most of you know, there's at least 2,000 different versions of the so-called Holy Bible. And one of these is the Masonic Bible, which Martin Luther King Jr., by him being a preacher, okay, and a scholar of the Christian order, he was a Mason. And he happened to make this particular speech in a Mason temple in Memphis, Tennessee. And this was on April the 3rd, 1968. And while being at the Mason Temple, naturally, in fact, you can't even find a church right now, especially Asiatics, in it, that you won't find a Mason's pulpit, okay, surrounded with Eastern Stars or ushers, I'm sorry, okay, and you got some ordained deacons and trustees and whatnot, just like you do in the lodge. In fact, churches, for the better part, are nothing but open lodges for the weekend. But most lodges are sealed during the course of the evening. They have meetings on Tuesday nights or Wednesday night, whatever the case may be. But these are secret, and you must have the password and know the knock in order to get in. But on Sundays, there ain't no knocking. Okay, you just come on in, and you got the most worshipful master sitting right there at the pulpit. Okay, right there at the podium. And Martin Luther King Jr., like his father, many others, there's no exception to this. Our people did not know any better about Western Freemasonry. You must remember, that which enslaved you, okay, oftentimes, it's the last thing a slave find out is who the real slave master is. They know about Mr. John, but they don't know about his power. Okay? They know about Mr. Smith, but they don't know about his power. They know about the plantation, but they don't know about its power. Okay? And of all the things that took place during the time of the Moorish enslavement here in the United States, the colonies, etc., and the corporate United States, rarely, extremely rarely, and more than once, please pay attention, all right? It's extremely rare for a Moorish American, or let me say, yeah, because if I say the Moorish Americans are descendants of the ancient Moabites, so I'll just keep it real. So it's extremely rare for Moorish Americans to realize that Masonry is about enslaving them, and there's no power in the whole world of Western Freemasonry that can free them. This is hold true for the entire Zulu nation, Washita, Tariq, Moorish Science Temple, all the Baptist churches, Protestant churches, all of them. If they got one taste of Western Freemasonry in them, they're still a slave. And they don't realize it, but the reason for it being is because Western Freemasonry, as we also use the example of the handcuff, okay? It's like a pair of handcuffs can't do any more than what handcuffs are designed to do. Okay, they're designed to restrain. So you can have all the keys to it that you want. But if somebody put a pair of handcuffs on you, what you gonna do? You can't dribble the ball or nothing, okay? You don't have no freedom. The handcuffs are still doing what a handcuff's supposed to do. Even when somebody come along later, take the key, unlock the handcuff, but it does not change the status or the state of the handcuff. Okay? Handcuffs are going to be handcuffed no matter what they do. or where the key is at. It doesn't matter. They still laying there on the ground, ain't bother nobody. They still handcuffs. Okay? They still handcuffs. So what the Freemasonry is the same. It was designed from the ancient teachers out of Kemet and mixed with a little European Catholicism. And as a result of this particular template order, they ended up with Western Freemasonry. But it was designed to conquer, subdue all of the entire continent of Africa, mainly its headquarters, which was Egypt, and all of its inhabitants. Okay, I'll repeat. Western Freemason coming out the order of the Template Order, okay, which later developed into being the Scottish Rite and York Rite Order, which Negroes ain't got nothing, no power in at all. It's not, Mason is not for them, but about them, okay? And as a result of this, West Freemasonry was designed by Europeans and handed down to their descendants, okay, to carry on as a wealth thing. And it's right in the Quran that way, you know. The Christianity, the Bible is handed down by the Europeans to their children, their descendants, okay, for their earthly salvation. Okay? This is salvation to the European, to enslave Africa and Africans. That's their salvation. They have never built anything. They never gave life to anything. They never created anything. The tallest building they ever seen right there in Africa. Okay? So I don't want to go into those little tidbits right now. The main thing is that there is no salvation in the world of Western Freemasonry. Martin Luther King on April the 3rd, 1968, was at the Masonic Temple, or the Mason Temple as they call it. Okay, it's the church by day, Masonic Temple by night. Okay, Masonic Lodge by night, Blue Lodge. In fact, the very temple ceiling of the church itself was blue. Okay, so when they converted, we really didn't have a problem. All right, but at the same time, what I want to do before I go into this, because I want to read the last paragraph of the speech, and you can look this up online if you want to, okay? The speech that Martin Luther King Jr. Made in Memphis, okay? It goes like this. And this is at the very last part of the speech. And then I got to Memphis, and some began to say that the threats, or talk about the threats that were out, what was going to happen to me for some of our sick white brothers? Well, I don't know what will happen now. We got some difficult days ahead. But it doesn't really matter with me now, because I have been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. So, I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Now, this was the last portion of a very extensive speech. It was maybe about 16 minutes long. There's a 16 again. Okay? And this was the last portion of that special speech that he made at the Masonic Temple in Memphis. And what a lot of Moors didn't realize that what he had reference to was he had went to visit the Prince of Peace, Dr. R. German Bay, earlier around that February. And this is a report that was given to me by the Prince himself and many others who witnessed him. The Prince had a building at 700 block of West Baltimore Street. The temple itself was 762, but he had another building, 755 and 753, across the street that covered the first three buildings, including the second floor. They used to have like an auditorium that was there in Baltimore. And but that Baltimore and Fremont Avenue, there was a full fire station there at the time. When Martin Luther King had been to another part of Maryland called Gettysburg, he came up from Gettysburg, and at the invite of Dr. Demavay, the Prince of Peace, who had his own Moorish Science Temple. He was the Grand Governor at the time. And the unique thing about the Prince of Peace, who was also a lady who became my instructor, the unique thing about him was that he was taught by the Prophet Nabi Ali himself. And when the Prophet came to Baltimore and established at the request of Brother Akub Bey, who had established a temple there at the appointment of the Prophet. Okay, this is back, this turned out later to become temple number 13 in Baltimore. It was down on a place called Water Street. And this is back in the late 20s, around 27, something like that. And the Prince was a young Mason, about 23 years old. And he still had his ring on and a little card and his wallet and stuff, you know. And German Bay, the Prophet told him and asked him, said, you know, what you doing? He called him boy. He first told me that, right? And so what the Prophet did, he took the Prince's ring off, he took the card out of his wallet, and put his fez on the head of Dr. John Bay, who later became Dr. John Bay. His name was Rufus. And told him, said, well, now you're free. And he gave him the name Day. And told him that he had mission for him, that what he wanted him to do was to represent his people there in the city of Baltimore, because the Cook Bay brother was there on assignment. And he wanted him to take over from there. And so he assigned him, and he gave him the title, the Prince of Peace. He said that's all he wanted him to do was to tell his Moors the truth, tell his people the truth. That was his assignment. And the reason why I know so much about it, because that's the same thing he did to me. He said, it don't make no difference whether you tell my Moors the truth, okay? And, man, that ain't nothing nice, nothing easy. Anyway, getting back to February of 68, this is when, coming out of Gettysburg, when Martin Luther King Jr. and his little brief entourage, he didn't have a real strong entourage. It was 2 cars, that's what the Prince said. And he said with the Prince, at this time, I was not even, I didn't come into the movement until 1969, which was a year later, Martin Luther King. I had seen him a couple of times as my travel coming through the Carolinas. I was down in Charlotte a little earlier, and I said to myself, you know, well, to the news and stuff, because you just don't run around in the South doing the thing that Martin Luther King Jr. was doing. And so, you know, I say like me being, you know, in the street, somebody gonna kill that nigga, and that's what, you know. You just don't have no sit-ins and no rallies and peace marches and all that. You call it what you want to. You didn't do that in Klan country, okay? And not without suffering, you know, death. Going to jail was the lightest thing that could happen to you. The next to that, it start going downhill after that. Dogs being beat up, shot up, bombed, and killed. Okay, and they had many ways of doing things to you. But nevertheless, when in that February, when Martin Luther King Jr. Met with the Prince took him to what he later called the mountaintop. Let me tell you what the mountaintop is so you both know, okay? When he met with the Prince, by the Prince being a very conscious Moorish American, okay, he let him see through his own Bible, and the Prince was a master with the Bible, but that's the way that he found that the best way to raise his own people was to get them to, especially those that was involved in the church, was to get them by the Bible. It was like, because the Bible, like as he used to call it, it was like a ring in the nose. Yeah, and I don't know how much y'all know about raising cattle and things, but usually if you want a cow to not go anywhere, you put a ring in the nose and you put a chain on it, and it'll be right there all day. Okay, because he ain't gonna follow. It'll be right there. Because that ring and that chain, you can take the chain off, but the ring is still there. If you don't want to go no further, put the chain back on. Okay, because you don't want to tear that nose off. Okay, but anyway, masonry was like that. I wish you more to see these sisters here. What are y'all doing? Anyway, getting back. Well, these Mecca and Aisha, born and raised in Baltimore City, they don't know nothing about no cows, okay? Anyhow, speaking of masonry then, but the Prince, by him being a master with the Bible, he knew how to reach into the very heart and soul of everything that Martin Luther King dealt with, by him being a Mason especially. You must remember the Bible that Obama used in his honor yesterday was called a traveling Bible. Well, as most of the Masons say, they call themselves traveling man. I'm a traveling man, okay? And a widow's son, all this other, because they don't know that Allah is the husband man, and since Allah can't die, there can't be no widow. But he didn't know that. He knew it then, after the Prince told him. But that's one of the things the Prince took away from him. The Prince taught masonry like this, the way he taught to me, Brother Porter L. and many others that were there. He said learning masonry is something that all our men should do. He said, because you never know. He said it's like French. You learn to speak French so you could be respected when you go to France. I repeat, learning masonry is like learning French, so that you could be respected when you go to France. That means when you're in France, if you want to get along with the people of France, it'd be a whole lot better, Or even if you meet a Frenchman in the streets of the United States, and bonjour, parlez-vous français, or whatever, okay? They are more likely to cater to you, understand that you are speaking their language, okay, than it would be if you didn't know how to speak French at all, okay? So what happened when it comes to masonry, you learn masonry so you learn how to deal with the different courts and the legal systems of the United States, because this is what the whole Constitution, the government of the corporate United States is based upon. Was Freemasonry. George Washington was a Mason. All of them. Okay? Every last one of them. The 56 signs of the Declaration of Independence were Masons. Okay? And these was also slave owners. Okay? George Washington's wife Martha owned over 400 Moors when he became the first president. No, he was the 9th president under the British rule of the colonies. He owned some slaves then. And when he became the president, because under the British Constitution, slavery was legal. Slavery was legal under the British law, but the colonies was under the corporate law under Britain. So they wrote the Black Code Law, which authorized George Washington, who was the 9th president under the colonial rule under Britain, okay, who later became the first president when he rebelled against Britain because he was of the Scottish Rite Order. So there was a big fight going on between the Scottish and York Rite Orders. All right, this is how the colonies later rebelled against Britain and then later became the United States. And the very first treaty that they signed was a treaty of trade and commerce, how to make money by enslaving Africans with Morocco. That was in the first treaty signed with the new United States. I know I may be sound like I'm bouncing around with this Martin Luther King thing, but I'm trying to show you, to take you to the mountaintop. So just bear with me for a minute, okay? This treaty of so-called peace and friendship between a Muslim sultan of Morocco and the president, the European president of the United States, the only thing they had in common that was worth anything was trade and commerce. So the most popular business that was going on at that time was the West African slave trade, which has been going on since 1492. Okay? And this is being conducted, controlled, and masterminded by Masons. Okay? There is no such thing as a Negro Mason. I had to check myself. Okay, with any power. None. Okay? I don't care if they call themselves a boule, whatever. It don't make no difference. Because, number one, have you ever seen a so-called black Mason that was free or had their own nation, a nation of his own people, with his own constitution? No, of course not. Why? Because as long as they call themselves a Mason, they're still a slave. Even if they call themselves CMB, Taj Tariq, it don't make a dime worth of it. If you still honor West Freemasonry, I don't care how much you end out the courts of the United States, you're still a slave. Now, let's get back to February of 1968, when Martin Luther King Jr. met with Dr. R.W. Bay, the Prince of Peace, who also was master of Western Freemasonry. Okay? Now, the Prince himself was a free man, but he was a Mason at one time. Remember? When he was a Mason, a young Mason, so he thought, when the prophet met him, and the prophet took away all his Masonic, whatever it was, and freed and told him, say, now you're free. Put the fans on his head and called him, say, now you're free. Okay, so here comes Martin Luther King Jr., and him and the Prince talking, and the Prince elevated him, took him to the mountaintop so he could see that, and I want you to pay close attention to a couple of passages that he spoke about, a couple of lines that he said. He said, I want you to know tonight that we, and to this day, nobody asked the question, who is this we you're talking about? Then he defined the we as a people will get to the promised land. So where is this promised land? What land has been promised? Now let's go back, Morris. Let's go back in mind. The last time that you can remember somebody talking about the promised land. Didn't it sound something like Moses? Okay? Coming out of Egypt, talking to the Pharaoh, let my people go and all that. And they got out there into the wilderness and said, well, you know what? Because they want to go to the promised land. Moses promised them they were going to the promised land. But he was talking to a bunch of Hebrews. I'm sorry, Negroes. I'm sorry, some black people. Wait a minute. Anyway, the name for the Negro slaves at that time, what the Corinthians called their slaves, they called them Hebrew because there was some Hebrewed up, you see. So they made them into slaves. They didn't denationalize them, they just didn't let them room to teach them who their forefathers were. So when they got stranded out there in the wilderness, they wandered around the wilderness for 40 years looking for the promised land. Someone went back to the old golden calf, Western Freemasonry. Okay, that's what we got today. They went back to the old golden calf and the golden ass, Okay, they can kiss in there too. And anything made out of gold. And what? Anyhow, and what happened? They could not get to the promised land. Moses was telling them, say, look, he said, just like Martin Luther King did, says, I may not get there with you, but one day you as a people will get to the promised land. And upon investigation, the second and third generation after 40 years began to realize, wait a minute, we are descendants of the Hittites, Amorites, Moabite, Canaanite, and that was how the Hebrews were able to get to the promised land. But it took the Hebrew Bible with them. I'm sorry, the Torah. Okay? You know, again, there is no such thing as a Hebrew people. There's never been a Hebrew land. Like so, as much as the Mason, Negro Mason called himself, knowing that this and they're on top of that, they ain't no further than what the slave master let them be. Here, boy, you get in front of my church and you teach and you preach, boy. Okay? Okay, go ahead in the Moorish side, boy. Okay? But you better not act like you want to free nobody. Because as long as you got masonry, I ain't worried about you. You can't teach them no freedom, because there ain't no freedom in masonry. No more than you would find the freedom of one government in the courts of another government. Your freedom is like the Prophet Noble Drawley brought in your divine constitution bylaws that we read at every meeting. Your freedom is within your own government. There is no other way to be free. You will never be free. Call yourself a Mason all you want to, scratching and digging and carrying on, but you'll never be nowhere. You know how long our brother been scratching and digging since Prince Hall? Because he was the head of the Negro Masonic Lodge. Okay? And this is before there was a United States. That's how far back Prince Hall didn't go. But guess what? They were little slaves then. Okay? And they were like double agents. First time they were snitching to the British when they become new plantation owners. And then after the British got to cover so fast, they started snitching to the plantation on what the British were saying. Because what else? The Negroes don't have no land of their own. They don't own no plantations, they don't own no countries, no government, like the Masons, the real Masons do. All right, all the Masons own something. That's how come they was able to keep secrets. Some of the greatest secrets the Masons ever kept was like Black Wall Street, where they killed over 3,000 people, burned up their homes and businesses and everything. And nobody in the whole United States knew a thing about it for 40 years. Okay. But they were still Masons. I'm talking about the Negroes are still running around talking about they were Masons. But they didn't know how to reveal that secret, did they? Okay. So, what I want to bring your attention to, when Martin Luther King went and visited with the Prince took him to let him know what his people really look like. Okay? He let him know the fulfilling of the prophecy. And with the promised land is called Moorish America, because we actually own the America. The Prophet Noble Drawley had the actual mandate that says in writing that all the nations of the earth that's conscious of anything know that we are the actual owners. And there's the mandate. The mandate right now is over Geneva. Okay? And Martin Luther King was made privileged to the information that our people would never be free, being Mason. He made privilege to the information that the promised land was actually Moorish American returning to their own and being themselves. Okay? That there was no such thing as a Negro, black, and colored. That's why this speech was the very last speech, but you also must take into account that all of Allah's angels, in which Martin Luther King Jr. was an angel of Allah. All right, don't misunderstand it now, okay? That he was not blessed. He had a foresight, he had a vision. He knew he was going to go away from here. Okay, he knew it wasn't going to be pretty, but he knew it was going to be instant. He knew it was going to be quick. Okay? Little did he know it was going to be the very next day after he had made his speech about the promised land. okay, which happened a couple of months before. He got the news for the first time. Now, bear in mind, he had been to Africa and some other places. He had met with people from dignitaries all over the world. But nobody could tell him about the promised land, but about a conscious bear. And that was the Prince of Peace. So this is the history and the story as given to me by my instructor, Dr. R.W. Bay, the Prince of Peace. I sit under his tutorship as one of his most faithful and strongest students. Now he also let me know that stiffest opposition will always be people saying where it was with the prophet. But again, like Martin Luther King Jr. had to say, we will get there. We will get to we will have Moorish America. If you don't believe me, have you looked around lately? Have you seen that there is a divine constitution of Moorish America, not the Moorish Science Temple of America? Because you are not, if someone asks you your nationality, what you going to say? Moorish Science Temple of America. That's started in 1913. That's how far back you can go. Come on now. Okay? Now what about Moorish America? What about the Holy Quran of Moorish America? Where did that come from? Oh my goodness, there's 70 chapters to it. Okay? You got a divine constitution, you got a Holy Quran for the holy instructors. We're reading the chapter for the day. You're learning how to be, you're having our people teach our people how to be Moorish Americans. Just like chickens are teaching chickens how to be chickens. Okay? So the fulfilling of the prophecies of Noble Drew Ali is coming through Martin Luther King Jr. And the dates that we mentioned, well, don't take these dates lightly, okay? January 15th is a very, very powerful date, and Martin Luther King Jr. had to be born on that date, all right? The 16 years that Noble Drew Ali spent going to Africa and to spend another 16 years of his divine ministry, okay? In fact, that there was only 4 years difference between them in ages before they both left the body. After their work was complete, their mission was complete. This is not accidental either, okay? So I want to give much honor to Martin Luther King Jr. for the work that he did and the mission, because, well, let me tell you something more. Like it or not, well, that's one of the reasons why we moved here, so we could go about this work with as much, solitude and strength as possible, because our stiffest opposition, and there are more right now all over, there's hate Pleasant Bay. Hate. But they're not saying anything about freedom. They're not saying anything about love. And if our people know anything about anything, they ought to know that hatred cannot help you. Okay? If anybody has hated anybody as much as we have been hated, that they have written books and code and laws. If you ever been to court, then you know what I'm talking about. It could be traffic court. Okay, then you know that it's at the discretion of hatred what they want to do to you, because you ain't got nowhere to go. You got no government, you got no security, you got no sovereign power. All right, and this is what it is that Martin Luther King Jr. had to say. That's why he said, otherwise, like anybody, I would like to live a long time. He said, but longevity has its place. Okay? Longevity got its place. Noble Drew Ali could have stayed around as long as he wanted to. But longevity had its place. All right? He wasn't here for the duty. His duty was to deal on the soul plane. So when he came again in the person of the Prince. He came again in the person of Martin Luther King Jr. He came again in the person of Elliot Pleasant Bay. Even his sisters, the Moorish goddesses and queen. This is Noble Drew Ali movement. Wherever you see the truth, freedom, and redemption of his people, salvation, the prophet is there. Otherwise, they wouldn't have that kind of power. All right? That's why nobody got the power to redeem the Moors but the Moors. So it's been a blessing, Moors, speaking with you. And the promised land is Moorish America. If you want about it, it's legal term. Okay? And like Martin Luther King said, I may not get there with you, but you will. Okay? And I want you to know that the only way you can get there, you must be a people, as he said. But I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. You can't get there no other with no organization, no groups, no club, no individual, no grand shike and all that. No. You got to be one nation of people because that's what you're supposed to be, like the rest of the nations of the earth. I'm going to open up the floor now.